It's finally time. What's the future with this Toronto Blue Jays organization? Will it be Ross Atkins or will it be somebody else? It's finally time to have the conversation.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sportsing like I want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko, Carter First 2, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. Make sure you guys drop a subscription here on YouTube. It helps us out, keeps us at the top of your guys' page, so you get all the up-to-date Blue Jays information. And if you're listening everywhere else, we really appreciate it. A big day across the streaming services on Friday. That was nice to see. Hopefully that'll continue with you guys wanting the Blue Jays information here. And we're ready to give it to you guys. It was a sort of a crazy day, Carter, in Blue Jays land, bringing up Will Wagner, who we will discuss more in segment 2 and 3, I should say. But I have to put it out there. Fourth Blue Jay in the history of the franchise to record 3 hits in his MLB debut. So great to see from him, and we'll break that more down sort of as we go along here, Carter. But you know what? I don't think we waste any time, and we get talking about sort of the future of Ross Atkins here with this Toronto Blue Jays team, or whichever way you want to say it, non-future firing, maybe the future. It's up for debate at this point. There's still question marks. But there was information released as Shapiro did come out with some quotes. So we're going to get into all that, Carter, sort of coming up here. But I think before we get into the quotes, I think let's just get it out there. I don't think anybody's happy with the job that Ross Atkins has done. I don't think that is a mystery to anybody. He's a guy that's been very solid at making deals, making trades. The problem is the acquiring players in the offseason to bolster this lineup, making questionable. There, as much as there are good moves, there are also questionable moves. He's done a great job, obviously, getting Will Wagner here, Jake Bloss. I mean, some of the moves that were made were good moves, but it's too little too late from a team that was expected to be a contender this year. I think that's where everybody's heads were at. Or at least by this point in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette's careers, we thought that, we'd be fighting for division titles, we'd be fighting for World Series, but it hasn't worked out that way quite yet. Is this all on Ross Atkins? Absolutely not. I don't think that this is just a Ross Atkins thing. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to put a winning squad out there, and you haven't been able to. And you've had 8 years. They haven't won a postseason game, Carter. Where do you stand on this?
Before I get into where I stand, I'm just going to kind of go back into Ross Atkins' history. Yeah, and he won playoff games in 2020 or 2016. But me and you on this podcast kind of just have the same viewpoint on this. This wasn't Ross Atkins' team, more of Alex Anthopoulos' team. He just inherits a team that just went to the ALCS. Lost, unfortunately, to the Royals, but had very good players in Evan Encarnacion, MVP, and Josh Donaldson. Jose Bautista, you name it. There's a bunch more players. That team was so good in 2015. 2016 was also a very good team. And then you look recently, you get swept by the Mariners, you get swept by the Twins. There's just not a lot of good things cooking in Toronto Blue Jays land. So overall, with that success, you look at 2021, this offense is so good. One of the best offenses we've seen in a very long time. Doesn't build the bullpen very well. Adam Simber is your 8th inning guy. It's probably not going to play too well. Not a very good bullpen that year. 2022, a little bit better of a bullpen, a little bit better pitching staff, but you decide that you don't want Teoscar Hernandez playing defense for your team. You don't want Lourdes Gurriel playing defense. So you trade for Dalton Varsho. You stack up on that defense going into 2023, and they do not load up the offense whatsoever. And we thought that was going to be probably the worst year. We're like, okay, the pitching staff should be decent again. Maybe there is some regression. Moving into 2024, your big signing in the offseason is Justin Turner. Maybe you could throw it out to IKF at this point. But just going into the season, you knew that the bats were going to be a problem. You didn't have that offensive firepower you needed. You didn't have the power bat other than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And we are seeing that right in front of our eyes right now. The bullpen has looked absolutely horrendous, even worse than that 2021 season, if that was even possible. You look at the offense, has picked it up recently, but they haven't been set up for success by Ross Atkins. And you did allude to it. He's not the only guy to blame. He wasn't the only guy making decisions. It really is the only guy. But you are the general manager. You have that title. It's like when John Schneider puts out a bad lineup. It's not necessarily just him, but he is the manager of this team. He's the bench coach, and he is the one that is in charge of setting up the lineup. So if you're going to have a guy to blame, it's going to be Ross Atkins for the construction of this team. But overall, you go over some trades. Yeah, like you did good at the deadline. But going into the season, like, I don't think anyone was going to say this team was going to have top 15 offense, even just an average offense in this league. People knew it was not going to be great. We didn't think it'd necessarily be this bad. But you look at how the 2024 season's went, it's very hard not to question Ross Atkins' job for the future.
Yeah, and I mean, that's to say the least. I don't even think it's questioning at this point. I think the fans and us, I don't want to necessarily say all of Toronto Blue Jays media, because I don't believe that there's some sources, Sportsnet included, that are saying that Ross Atkins won't have a job at the end of the year. But I think everybody with a brain in their skull understands that he probably should have been let go before the trade deadline, and having somebody new involved to make those trades. Don't get me wrong, like we have talked about, he did a good job with the position that we were put in. But at the end of the day, everybody knows that he shouldn't be the general manager of this team any longer. I don't want Ross Atkins being the guy that's making these decisions in the offseason and us get, I don't know, they somehow pull Kevin Pillar back from retirement and they sign him. Like that's where I'm at. That's what I assume is going to happen with Ross Atkins at the helm here.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he went the old man route again and got Kevin Pillar. He had some moments with I believe it was Los Angeles Angels this season, but a guy that's getting up there in age. But that's the Ross Atkins way. He likes signing people that are about to be in their baseball grave, according to how good they once were at the peak of their careers. You'd think that you'd want to go in on maybe some young talent that hasn't necessarily hit their upside, but maybe they wanted the veteran presence. I'm not sure what exactly was running through the head of Ross Atkins, but we always kind of allude to how we feel about Ross Atkins' future. But I think Mark Shapiro let the fans in about the stability. He loves stability apparently, but he's letting the fans in on his plans for the rest of this season and the rest of 2025. So I just got a quote here from Mark Shapiro. So Ross Atkins obviously has been the general manager since 2016. And although he didn't outright commit to Atkins returning in 2024, he continued to push for stability. He goes, I very rarely am unequivocal about anything. Commenting on job status during the season is not something I've done or will do, Shapiro added, which is fair. It's still baseball to play. It's very rare that managers are fired within the season. Then he goes on, that being said, contextually, I am a big believer in continuity and continuity and stability, and think those are competitive advantages. The focus of my conversations with Ross is what we can learn about how we put the team together. So obviously, if you know what stability is, that means you don't really want to be switching up your general manager or just your front office in general. You want these guys to be in place for a decent amount of time. But you look at Ross Atkins' history, it's been since 2016. Clearly something hasn't worked. You haven't won a playoff series since 2016. So it's tough to get excited about a team and have faith in your general manager when he has not even showed you a playoff win with a team that he has created. So yes, I guess you want to run it back. There has been teams that have run it back in the past and have been pretty good the next season. Like just looking at this season, the New York Mets were 75-85 or 87 last season. Now they're 61-57. Is that where we want the Toronto Blue Jays to be? Probably not. We probably want them more games over 500 than that. Another team is the Kansas City Royals. They were horrible last season at 56-106. They are 65-54 now, 11 games above 500. That is maybe a possibility for the Toronto Blue Jays, depending on how they address this offseason. The Yankees, obviously, a team that didn't get too much better. They got Alex Verdugo. Obviously, Juan Soto helps a ton, but they were 82-80 last season. Now, this season, they're 70-50. Definitely going to blow that 82 win mark out of the water. And you look at the St. Louis Cardinals, they were 71-91, and now they are 60-59. So running it back with a similar team isn't completely out of the question. Teams can just have off years. Again, you'll have Bo Bichette next season. You're not necessarily expecting him to play as badly as he did this entire season. George Springer, you got to hope that he isn't the worst hitter in all of baseball for the first half of the season. So again, you can run it back, but am I necessarily confident this team can compete for a World Series with Ross Atkins as a manager? I'm definitely not going to say that. He hasn't had the greatest track record when it comes to offseason. Yes, he's made some okay trades, but overall, you're looking at this team, the core he has built. They have not really shown you much for the future, and they have not showed you any playoff success. So with Ross Atkins at the helm, it's going to be tough for me to believe that the Toronto Blue Jays can make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, and I don't know. You sort of hit the nail on the head there. I got another quote from Shapiro, sort of that continues on that conversation. He says, "We believe there's enough talent in place to build a contending championship caliber team next year." Um, I understand the sentiment in the sense that I think that Vlad is a core piece. He is your leader. He is the guy that's going to have to not carry this team, but lead this team to wins. And he's shown that he's capable of that. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to put pieces in place to help him out. And I think running it back with the same squad, like we've talked about, isn't the option here. You can't roll out 24-year-olds that are their first years in the MLB. Great. We saw, we'll get into Will Wagner. We saw great stuff from him today, but it's one game. There has to be offseason signings that boost this team. And if that happens, then I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a possibility of contention here. But that's a big if. Going back to Ross Atkins, we have not seen those offseason signings that we need to. As much as whoever thinks that we were in on the Shohei Ohtani deal, that can't not be your only move. If you are willing to build a quality contending team, you have to sign multiple pieces in the offseason. You have to trade for multiple pieces. If you're going to give it a go, you have to give it a go. And Ross Atkins hasn't been the guy that's been able to pull the trigger on some of these big moves. Or maybe not pull the trigger, but be able to make these big moves happen. That's the question mark for me.
Well, and this guy, again, they have been engaged in contract talks with Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but it doesn't seem like they're very close on these numbers. You obviously want to be able to extend at least one of these players. Obviously, right now we are leaning towards Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with how much he talks about wanting to be a Toronto Blue Jay for a long time, and just obviously the recency bias does help us out a little bit with that one. But I want to get into, again, how Mark Shapiro continued about the possibility of extending these two. So Shai Davidi asked, obviously, about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. Shapiro goes into saying, "I'm not going to comment on those guys specifically, but it's easier to build a sustainable championship team with talent like that in place for extended periods of time." So again, there's not really too much I'm taking away from this. Yes, obviously there should be interest in extending players like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. A lot of this will rely on Mark Shapiro, but also a good chunk of this will rely on Ross Atkins as well. So if he wants to start going into the 2025 season with any sort of fan respect or faith going into 2025, I think you've got to get one of these deals done, specifically Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If you want to actually have a chance for fans to think you're an okay manager and have a chance of steering the helm in the right way and not just completely crashing the ship into an iceberg or something like that, you want him to actually be able to drive your team to have more wins than 70 or whatever to get the season. So is he going to be able to do that? We're going to have to see. Again, we want him to be fired with his track record. But if you want any sort of fan respect, you have to sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You have to give us something to be positive about going into 2025.
And Carter, I think that's a great place to sort of move us into the direction of where we're going here. We're going to take a quick break. We have so much more on Ross Atkins, the future here. This was a big episode for us. We put together some stuff. We took a look. We did, we've gotten some quotes and stuff like that. And I think we've come to our conclusion. And there's a lot of pieces that go into this with Ross Atkins. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Ross Atkins. We'll do the game recap sort of as best as we can. We'll get into Will Wagner. We'll do all that in the third segment, plus take a look at the game coming up. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
Spring has sprung, and that means spring cleaning. Whether that means stocking up on cleaning supplies or swapping out your winter clothes for new spring clothes, make sure you're using Ibotta and get real cash back with every purchase. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, buy that flight you've been eyeing, that Blue Jays game you've been dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out into your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store and Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app, start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As you guys know, we are huge FanDuel fans. I mean, who isn't, right? I mean, if you're a betting guy like myself, FanDuel is the only option for you. Not just the only option, the best option. I want to put that out there. There's live same game parlays. I talk about this all the time. They are my favorite thing to do because sometimes I'm terrible at creating my own. They have little ones that are sort of marked as hot or what other people are betting. And it shows you maybe what some of the better options are for guys who maybe know the betting scene better than I do myself. As always, I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever, wherever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets at any time I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. So, Carter, we're going to continue here on this Ross Atkins talk a little bit. You were talking about the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. deal, the Bo Bichette deal that needs to get done, because if those two contracts are not in place, at the end of the day, you're not getting the butts in the seats. You're not giving the fans anything to really, come to the ballpark for. And in saying that, I have a little bit of a sort of a mention here from Blue Jays Hot Stove. The Blue Jays renewal deadline for season tickets have now passed. And let's just say there is an unprecedented amount of fans canceling their season tickets for 2025. I mean, I don't think that shocks anybody right now with the team that's being played out on the field. Yes, there's some young guys that are fun to watch. But at the end of the day, if we're not going to see this team win games and make a push to the playoffs, you're going to see fans drop off. And this comes right back to what I was talking about Ross Atkins in the offseason. You have to bring in names that are going to make a difference on this ball club. I am very confident in Vladimir Guerrero Jr., in Spencer Horwitz, in a bunch of these guys. I'm very confident in Dalton Varsho. I mean, there's no taking him out of the lineup with the amazing defense that he plays. But in saying that, there has to be additional pieces. Will not sit around and watch Joey Lopervito all year and him go 0 for 4 every night. I just won't take it, and most fans won't either. And I'm not hating on Joey Lopervito. He's a guy that maybe will figure it out. But in that vein, right, a guy like who I hate to say right now, but Davis Schneider, the guy needs to be better. And as an additional supporting piece, there has to be other guys. I've talked to Anthony Santander. I've talked to other guys as well before. These are names that are out there. And if the Blue Jays aren't making a realistic push for some big name supporting cast players, I don't know how Ross Atkins is still around. I think there has to be some big offseason acquisitions here.
Well, and you just look at this team and kind of look how it's gone over the last month. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was one of the best hitters in all of baseball for a 22-game stretch, and they were fighting to stay at 500 baseball. So you go into next season, if Vladdy isn't just the greatest player of all time for a stretch like that, even with a stretch like that, this team has shown that they cannot consistently win baseball games. So you're going into next season, you're right. Like, you look at guys like Will Wagner, as we'll get into very soon, 3 for 4 day for the kid. Definitely going to take that. But you look at guys like that, Joey Lopervito, like Leo Jimenez, again, congrats for a first MLB career home run. But these aren't guys that are like popping off the page. Like, looking on paper, you're comparing this team to the Baltimore Orioles, New York Yankees, the Houston Astros. You can name a bunch of teams in the AL East, or the AL in general, and you see that there's a lot of teams that are just way more deep and just going to be way more competitive than the Toronto Blue Jays next season. And you're already going to have to sign probably 4 bullpen arms. You want your bullpen to be bolstered whatsoever. You're going to have guys like Eric Swanson returning. Jordan Romano hopefully does return to form. Chad Green will be on the team. So you do have some bullpen pieces there. But again, you look at the offense, you look at just how inconsistent it's been, how inconsistent the pitching has been all season. There's a lot of problems to address on this team. So with Ross Atkins, and again, his track record, it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good whatsoever. So at what point are you going to throw in the towel and say, hey, this experiment didn't work? We got to move on from this guy. And Ross Atkins, his contract doesn't expire until 2026. Are you going to wait that long to have a manager that hasn't produced any playoff wins for you in over 8 seasons? I'm definitely not on that boat. And I think a lot of fans are just kind of sick of looking at Ross Atkins at the helm. And we've just lost faith in the guy. We've lost confidence in our manager. And that's a really bad feeling to have about your baseball team, especially when you're looking at it from right now. And it's about 8 months till the Toronto Blue Jays are going to play any sort of meaningful baseball. That's a long time to wait. And it's a long time to wait for a team that might even be a subpar to mediocre. But there's a couple more things I wanted to throw in that Mark Shapiro said in his meeting with the Toronto Blue Jays just under a week ago. He said they're just under the CBT line, which is just the tax line, but they can be fluid. So there was a couple tweets as well. I saw that they do, again, you do want to be on the tax line. You don't want to have fines and different deductions, stuff like that. But he said it's a very secondary option. He just wants to see the prospects and our young talent develop and have good seasons. So I'm on the side for that. Obviously, you want to focus all of your resources, or at least most of them, on your young guys, your young developing talent, especially when you're in a position where the Toronto Blue Jays are. But you said about their business impact. Mark Shapiro also goes into that. He said there has been a business impact. When you lose, your sales start to be impacted. Good. I'm glad this is happening. I'm glad fans just aren't blindly going to Toronto Blue Jays games, because this is the fruit of their labor with Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, and company in the front office. They put this team together. We shouldn't have to pay all this big bucks for these games, because they're not cheap seats as we were in Toronto, and waste our time and effort and money on a team that's just not going to win a lot of baseball games. And then one more thing, they said there's going to be no large-scale pullback coming on the payroll. So they are going to be willing to spend again next season, which makes sense for an ownership company as big as Rogers. If they weren't spending money, that wouldn't literally make any sense whatsoever. And there's no big names on this team right now, other than you got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Bo Bichette is going to be an interesting one with a lot of the recency bias going around him, obviously, with Toronto Blue Jays fans. So you're going to need to get some bigger names if you want people to get excited about the Toronto Blue Jays for next season. Whether that's a guy like Alex Bregman, whether that's Anthony Santander, who I know you love from the Baltimore Orioles, they're going to have to get something for fans to restore their faith in this Toronto Blue Jays baseball team. If you want to make money, which obviously money drives the world, especially in the baseball world, you're going to have to give fans a reason to get excited. So hopefully they can do that in the season, and hopefully it's not with Ross Atkins. But the way things are trending, and I think I'm going to kind of leave it here with Ross Atkins, I expect him to be back for the 2025 season. As much as I hate to say that, just from his recency bias, just from his relationship with Mark Shapiro, with what Mark Shapiro has said, I don't see a firing coming in the offseason, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point. Just coming out of that is sort of in totality, what did you expect? And you answered that for me. Sort of where I'm at, and sort of just going off of your points here to sort of sum this up is, I mean, we could talk Ross Atkins for an hour, but I mean, we're just going to end up stepping over each other and back over ourselves. At the end of the day, if Ross Atkins is back, you just know that there's probably not going to be enough moves made in the offseason to give you any type of hope. As you alluded to, ticket sales, absolutely. I totally understand that they're down. I think I talked to a lot of people over the weekend, Carter, with when we had sort of the group together, and nobody's watching games anymore. Like, of course we are, but I mean, it's part of it. We're the diehards of the Blue Jays fandom. But if you're a more casual fan, I find it very hard to believe that anybody's watching this team right now. And yes, yesterday was an exciting game. That was, to see Will Wagner pop off, which we will get into, was fun. But who's tuning in just to see Will Wagner, right? And then to just go sort of to finish up here on the money line there. It's not shocking to me. It's just not shocking. There's no way that you should be above the line with the team that's out on the field right now. That shouldn't have been a shock to anybody. I understand what he's talking about, and I don't think that you should. If some fans expect them to be over the line still, then I think that's an even bigger problem. Because if we were over the money cap line, whatever you want to call it, with the team that's out there right now, I'd be panicking, because then they have no more money to spend in the offseason on anybody else. At least now there is room to work with to get that, the team payroll up. And I think that will be in contracts for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, but then also in contracts that are maybe guys that we can get through the offseason signings. We'll have to wait and see. At the end of the day, I fully believe, you fully believe, everybody in their right mind fully believes that Ross Atkins should not be the guy running this team anymore. They have to move on. If they want to be contenders, they have to move on. And I'm sorry, not sorry to say that, but it's where we're at. I'm not going to watch this team. It's going to be very hard for me to watch this team not compete next year. And I feel like if it's Ross Atkins, this team will not compete. And you guys can let us know what you guys think about Ross Atkins as well, because, maybe we're idiots. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe you have a different opinion, and we're happy to hear about it. Honestly, if we always say we love getting into it in the comment section. So as long as you guys got something sort of, good to say or bad to say against Ross Atkins, you can let us know. As we always say as well, I want to sort of hammer this home. If you guys got any questions, if it's Blue Jays related, podcast related, whatever it is, we'll be continuing doing mailbag segments sort of as they come in. And Justin Powers, our roommate, actually had a very good point that brought up a lot of conversation in the other day's episode there. So make sure you guys leave it, tag it mailbag, like put mailbag within the comment. We'll make sure we respond to that as well. And we can, sort of get some conversations going here as we're sort of in the dog days of the MLB. Just before we move on, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy Locked On MLB host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully. He's here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to get you ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer, as I said. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll be right back. We're going to go over some of yesterday's game, as there was a lot of interesting moments that sort of came out of this, and a little bit of conversation as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that.
Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the most reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can help you get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. You can join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com.
So, Carter, as we said, some very interesting stuff coming out of the game yesterday. We're sort of going to get into that a little bit. Of course, I got to go over what a day from Will Wagner. I'm just going to sort of break down what he did. Well, of course, the Blue Jays end up beating the Angels 4-2. Will Wagner goes 3 for 4. He hits his first his first major league hit is a double. It was great to see. He scores, hits 2 singles as well. Some of the ones he fought off, some of the ones he sort of shortened his swing. Great to see from him as well. He looked very good defensively at second base, making some one really nice play. I believe it was in the 7th inning.
Eighth inning, but yeah. I was one up the middle.
Yeah, the one up the middle. Yeah, really, really nice to see. So he looks promising, but again, you got to give him 25 games, I would say, before you make a full-on assumption. I think you got to give him enough where you can see the bigger picture. And we'll see. We'll see what comes out of Will Wagner, but a great, great day for him. And Leo Jimenez, Carter, also hits his first major league home run today. That was great to see as well. Bowdin Francis. This is where I want to get into a little bit. I was pretty frustrated. Bowdin Francis goes 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run off the home run he gave up, 8 strikeouts. Bowdin Francis's longest and best start as an MLB pitcher in his career. I don't understand pulling him at 80 pitches. I know that there's an argument for this. This is the best he's looked. And yes, he'll take probably the highs from this game and maybe go for it. And then I think that is the argument, is you want to pull him when he's still doing good enough where he can continue to build on this. I understand that part. I don't necessarily believe in that. I think if the guy's dealing, let him go, let him figure it out, let him figure out how to work out of things. Yes, he gave up the home run. That was it. He gave up one hit the entire game, 8 strikeouts. He looked unbelievable. His stuff was nasty. He was using the fastball way more. And I just really liked the way that Bowdin Francis approached the hitters at the plate. I think he challenged them with the fastball, saved his breaking stuff for a little bit later. I know he's throwing a little bit of the sliders, saved the curveball, saved the splitter to use in the next few times through the at bat, and that worked really well for him. I think if he can have his command, I really like that. But a little bit of my gripe, Carter, was pulling him that early, and I don't know necessarily. Are you sort of on my side with this, or did you like sort of when he was pulled?
For me, it sucks seeing a guy that's dealing like that being pulled in that situation. But Bowden Francis, like you said, that's as long as he's gone into a game. I don't think he's stretched out fully to be a starter right now because he has been coming into games where he's only thrown 60, 70 pitches. So again, if he was ready to go and this was just like, oh, we're just trying to manage you, even though he felt good, I think you got to listen to your pitcher. You got to listen to your dog on the mound. If he's having that good of a game, if he says he can go, I think you got to let him. Not sure if that's exactly what the situation was, but I do get if he was only worked up to about 70, 75 pitches, you don't want to let him throw 95 and then have an elbow injury or something scary like that. But what a day from Bowden Francis. In this sense, he's very similar to Yariel Rodriguez. I find with the both of them, if they don't have their command, you can just tell right away, and that's when they start to struggle. But one thing that Bowden Francis does struggle with, not as much as Yariel Rodriguez does not struggle with this as much as Bowden Francis does. Bowden Francis does love giving up the long ball. Again, you see that one time today, but when you give up one hit in the game, I don't care where they're hitting the baseball, to be honest. Like, the max you can give up is 1 run. And over 7 innings, that's going to be a very good start. And you look at his walks, he didn't have any walks, and he was absolutely dealing. Again, I don't want to take anything away from this guy, but this was the Los Angeles Angels lineup. Nothing crazy there. There's really, like, with Mike Trout out, like, there's not too many guys I'm scared of on this team. But it's a start you want to build off of for Bowden Francis. And he's been pretty good over his last 3 starts. I have his stats over here. 17 2/3 innings pitched, a 3.06 ERA, 10 hits given up, 17 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's the stat I'm really looking at. Like I said, when the command's there for Bowden Francis and he's keeping the ball in the ballpark, this guy can be a very effective pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays for a lineup and a starting rotation that might need Bowden Francis at least in the first few months of next season, with Alek Manoah still recovering from Tommy John. So if you can see anything positive from Bowden Francis, Yariel Rodriguez, these lower end starting pitchers on the Toronto Blue Jays, just having pitching depth is obviously so massive to a team. You look at the bullpen, you look at how much depth we have there. Been hurt by it a ton of times this season. So if you can have 6 starters that can go in any single Toronto Blue Jays baseball game next season, I'm definitely not going to complain about that. And just shout out to Bowden Francis for his unbelievable start. But I want to get more into Will Wagner. We kind of just brushed over the surface with him. You look at Will Wagner through 4 at-bats. For any qualified hitter with 4 at-bats, Will Wagner's leading the league. Leading the league in average, 750 average. Leading the league in OPS, 1,750 OPS. Best fielder in baseball, 1,000 perfect fielding percentage. What else can you want?
Yeah, no, but you know what? That's exactly it. I think that is the best day that anybody could have. Maybe on that 4th one where he hit the deep fly ball that didn't quite leave the yard. I mean, that's the only thing that he could have done better today, was having an extra 5 feet, 10 feet on that last at bat there. Otherwise, it was a complete perfect day from Will Wagner. And even in that at bat, that, yeah, he flies out and that, makes him go 3 for 4 instead of 4 for 4. It was a great at bat. So he's probably riding the biggest high of all time right now, and good on him. He absolutely deserves it. He played absolutely outstanding today. It was almost where I was waiting for his at bats, and that's really fun. Him and Vlad today. Vlad, I got to give a hat tip. Every pitch, I don't know what it was. Vlad was able to get his bat on the ball in 2 strike counts. I just haven't seen anything like it. Like in this past month and a half of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. baseball, there is no one like him, dude. There's a pitch on the outer half, and he somehow gets his bat to the ball to rope it for a single, and that was his worst hit of the day. And that's the one he got the hit on. The other 2 where he got out on were well hit baseballs. They just didn't quite get down, but they were pumped as well. There's There's no stopping this guy right now. A great day from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. I had to give a shout out because I really, really, really enjoyed watching his at-bats.
Yeah, it's the big three. You got Will Wagner, you got Joey Lopervito, and you got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Just hopefully going to continue to have success in the major leagues. Not as much with Joey Lopervito there, but he is a young prospect, so you can't really take too much away from there. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is just, again, he's one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball right now. He's getting his barrel to literally everything. He made a slight mechanical change in his swing before the All-Star break. I think it was at the end of June, around the time he cut his hair, and boy, has that ever worked out for him. You look at the side-by-sides, very different swings for Vladdy. I'm not sure if it was the hitting coach in Guillermo Martinez, probably not with his track record. But whatever it was, whoever was in his ear, thank you. You've unlocked Vladimir Guerrero Jr. once again, and he is playing some of the best baseball that he has played in a very long time. Maybe the best baseball he's ever played in his career. One more thing about Will Wagner, just going back to him. Congratulations to Will Wagner. He now has more hits than his dad. One game, that's all it took. Congratulations. Obviously 3 for 4. His dad being 2 for 20. No extra base hits. Will Wagner has an extra base hit. Look at that. Billy Wagner was a pretty good ball player. Not necessarily at the plate, but I mean, he was a good ball player in the MLB. So the fact that Will Wagner has more hits than his dad, that's something that he can hold over him for the rest of his life. But overall, I mean, a good game. Definitely not going to complain about your first game in the MLB going 3 for 4. Something to be positive about. But you look at Will Wagner, like compared to just other prospects going up for other teams. Just if say you were a Chicago Cubs fan right now, would you know who Will Wagner is in the Toronto Blue Jays? Probably not. It's just one of those prospects that you don't initially get excited for, but who knows? Maybe you can have a hot streak. Maybe you can go in a David Schneiderlin Sandy run to start the season. But when you go 3 for 4 with a double and you're hitting the ball hard all over the place, I'm definitely not going to complain about what you did on the baseball field.
No, and I mean, you look at the rest of the game as sort of, in totality, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's what we were all looking for today was how will Will Wagner do? How will Bowdin Francis do on the mound? And those two questions were answered surprisingly well. I think the other thing is how would Joey Lopervito do? And will he be able to bounce back? He went 0 for 4. So, you take the good with the bad. Again, like we said, with all these prospects, at the end of the day, you hope for 3 of them to pan out and you call it a success. So if Joey Lopervito isn't that guy, but Will Wagner, Jake Bloss, some guys like that, they end up being great. You've got to take that as a win. And we'll have to see sort of moving forward, Carter. Again, tomorrow's it's Fulmer versus Gosman tomorrow. So that should be another interesting one as well. Or tonight, I guess I should say. Jesus. But yeah, guys, let us know what you guys think about Ross Atkins. That is the big conversation of the day, as there's a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of discussions to have, and we will continue to have those discussions here on Locked On Blue Jays for you guys. Again, if you have any comments on it, leave it in the comment section. We want to know. Shoot us a message on Twitter, Braden5 Oscar, Carter First 2. Shoot us a DM on Instagram. We'll answer them all. We'll make sure we'll even bring them into the podcast. Just make sure you guys put mailbag in there somewhere so we know to answer it specifically on the podcast, because maybe we'll find it interesting. And sometimes, reading through the comments, we don't necessarily pick up, oh, we should read that on the podcast. But if you put the mailbag thing in there, we'll make sure we get that for you guys as well. I just want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Carter, anything else before we sort of get out of here? Big guy, do you think we covered Ross Atkins about as much as we can in a 25 of 38 minutes?
Yeah, there's always lots to talk about with Ross Atkins. You're looking at this front office, just how bad and how underwhelming this whole season has been. Definitely not where you want to be with your coaching staff. And I've been a Panthers fan, obviously. Bombers fans. I'll stick with the Panthers. It's probably more of a well-known team. When we had Scott Fitter at the helm, it was tough to watch baseball games, tough to watch football games, because you knew that even if they got good picks, even if they had a bad season and were trying to start the rebuild, you didn't have a guy that was going to put you in a good position to have success. Not saying Ross Atkins is necessarily that bad, but he's not too far off, unfortunately, for me. So when you don't have a manager that you have faith in, it's really hard to get positive about your baseball team, positive about the offseason, because you don't trust the moves he's going to make. And it's definitely not fun as a fan going in with that. One guy I do want to kind of give a shout out to, again, you talked about him a little bit, but it's been Leo Jimenez. First home run, obviously, into the left center field gap, just hammered that baseball. He's been having a lot of good at-bats recently, hitting 4 extra base hits. He's getting doubles at a pretty solid rate right now. You want to see him get the average up for a guy that's pretty good at defense for a young baseball player that's just making his MLB debut in this season. It's nice to see some positive things from Leo Jimenez, but other than that, just the likes, comment, support has been appreciated. I've noticed that I think it's about 68% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you guys are coming back to the episodes, tuning in every single day, helps us out a ton. Also keeps our podcast at the top of your page. But other than that, hopefully we can get a series win against the Los Angeles Angels. I think Kevin Gausman, if you guys are betting people, I'm having more than on Prize Picks. I'm going to take his strikeouts. I think he's going to have a very good game. He's going to continue that kind of success that these starting pitchers have had over the last week or so, other than Chris Bassett. But yeah, it's pretty much all I got. Appreciate you guys watching, coming back every single day, following the roller coaster of a season that the Toronto Blue Jays continue to have. And we'll be back to you with the hottest Toronto Blue Jays topics on tomorrow's episode.